Hey, Husker football fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald, and this is part of our Nebraska spring game preview. The Huskers will be playing on Saturday, April 9th. It'll probably be a red-white game, but we're not exactly sure how the rosters will be divvied up. We're talking early in the week here about the Husker spring game, and it should be a lot of fun. There's a lot of questions surrounding this particular team, both on offense and defense, and a little bit on special teams, and we're going to go over the three biggest questions. Now, one of these questions will not be special teams because oftentimes in spring games, special teams is just not quite as big of a deal. They want to try to limit the injuries and the contact that guys might have, and so usually in the spring game, you're not going to get a lot of answers about special teams, but rest assured, Nebraska might have been the worst special teams in the country last year, and those are questions they're going to have to answer when they start playing the games. I just don't know that you'll get that answer in the spring game. Let's start with question number one. It's about the Nebraska running game. Nebraska's offensive linemen say they're moving the pile. They're moving the line of scrimmage in a different way. How evident will that be? Well, here's the thing. Nebraska's moved to a little bit more of an aggressive blocking style under new coach Donovan Raiola. And Raiola has sort of brought a pro-style attacking where they strike and they move and they try to push people. And that, in theory, will create more holes for the running backs to navigate. There's weaknesses to that style, too. Okay, it's not foolproof or perfect, but it's designed to give the running backs a little bit of room to operate right off the bat, right? So they're not having to try to pick and slide the second they hit the line of scrimmage. They've got a little bit of room to run, and then maybe they can make that, set up that next move. How is Nebraska's offensive line doing? Well, they say they're doing pretty darn well in camp, right? They've said they've moved the line of scrimmage. Their coaches have said that. Scott Frost has said that. We'll find out in the spring game if that's actually true because, hey, they're not going to be facing one of the great defensive front sevens of all time on Saturday. Even if it were all the starters, it wouldn't be one of the great ones. So they should be able to move the line of scrimmage. And what you're looking for is as defensive linemen and inside linebackers that are moving 3 or 4 yards back, giving those running backs a lane to run in. If they're able to do that, it'll be kind of evident. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get 50-yard runs, but it does mean they're going to get a little bit of operating room when they get to the line of scrimmage. If it doesn't, well, we promise to be objective about that, and we'll tell you that it didn't exactly happen. Question number 2, how hard is nickel JoJo Domann going to be to replace? And we should begin to understand some of that answer this weekend. Domann could do a lot of different things in the defense. The first thing he could do, obviously, is he could set the edge against the run. It was very hard to run outside of him, including on jet sweeps. The second thing he could do is he could really carry tight ends, right? He could take away an opponent's tight end, and if you can take away a guy, in between the numbers or in between the hash marks, and Domann often could, man, you're doing something to a pass offense that's a really good thing. So that's the other thing he could do. And then the other thing is he could carry deep routes. He could cover deep. He could cover in the flat. He was just a good cover linebacker, and it's not surprising that he used to be a safety. Nebraska is probably not going to have another JoJo Domann. They're probably going to use at least 2 guys, maybe 3, to replace him. Those 2 guys I think you might see a little bit of on Saturday are Isaac Gifford and Chris Kolarvik, assuming that they're healthy. Kolarvik is a little bit better of maybe a run support guy, whereas Gifford's probably going to be that guy who's a natural safety who can do a little bit more of the coverage aspect. You could see both of those guys playing in that role. Just watch and see how they function there. It's an important position in Nebraska's offense. Nebraska doesn't really have a name for it. Eric Chenander's not frilly like that. He's not coming up with Jack or Star or Alpha or whatever people want to come up with. But it's an important position, and it's basically a defensive adjuster position. And Domann's really important to that defense last year, and we'll see how hard it is to replace him. Last one. Does the Nebraska passing game look smooth or disjointed? And this is kind of a 50-50 proposition. My hunch is on some of the plays they're going to look like that. They're going to look pretty darn good. Casey Thompson, Logan Smothers, Heinrich Harburg, Richard Torres, they're going to hit the end of their drops. They're going to get rid of the football. They're going to throw it on time, and they're going to throw it in rhythm, and they're going to throw it out in front of a receiver so he's got room to run. I think that could happen at times. The other thing I think you're going to see is there's going to be some disjointedness, especially as it relates to how they progress through some of their routes. And Mark Whipple's offense, I think you're going to see some more circumstances where it's not going to be deep to short. There's going to be hot routes. There are going to be things that they're looking for that may be a little bit different from what Scott Frost's passing game was. And so as a result, I think you're going to see the quarterbacks, their wheels spinning a little bit. The gears kind of turning because they're going to have to think quickly in this offense, and Whipple wants them to get rid of the ball. The point is not to hold on to it for 6 seconds and scramble around and then run for 7 yards or get sacked for 8 yards. He wants the guys to hit the back of their drop, be through their progressions, and boom, get the ball out. And so it'll be interesting to see how quickly they're able to do that from play to play. There's going to be times when it looks really good. There's going to be times when it looks kind of rough. I'll be curious to see that. Husker fans always go in there, oh, what are they going to do with a deep pass? Again, it's not an option offense. So, yes, you want to hit deep throws. You do. You want to. But what you really want to do is create a passing game where you can throw a 6-yard pass and it turns into a 25-yard gain, because the way that the routes are structured, your receiver's got the ball and he's got room to run. In Whipple's offense, that can happen. You don't just get big plays by throwing it deep or by having 32-second play action passes. You're able to throw that ball in a hitch and boom, it turns into a 17-yard play. So we'll see how it looks on Saturday, whether it's smooth or disjointed. That is our 3 big questions for Nebraska's spring game. For the Omaha World-Herald, I'm Sam McKewon. Thanks, Husker fans.